My family abandoned me on a camping trip to burn down their own house, without me knowing. My family left me and my 6-year-old daughter alone at a campsite 40 minutes outside cell range. And when I finally got us out, every single one of them told me I was overreacting. I need to back up, because if I just tell you the ending, you won't understand why it took me 3 weeks to figure out what actually happened that day. And once you know, you're going to want to throw your phone across the room. I did. I'm Rachel. I'm 34. I work as a bookkeeper for a mid-sized landscaping company outside Asheville, North Carolina, and I have a daughter named Poppy who just turned 6. I'm the middle child. My older brother Todd is 38 and runs sales for our dad's construction company, Whitfield Builders. My younger sister Dana is 30 and does the books for the same company, which, keep that detail in your back pocket, because it matters more than you'd think. Every Labor Day weekend for the last 11 years, the Whitfield family goes camping at a state park about 90 minutes from home. It's a tradition my mom started after her own mother passed, something about wanting us all unplugged and together once a year. Normally, I love it. Poppy loves it even more. She's been going since she was 8 months old, strapped to my chest in a carrier while I hiked. This year, my dad picked a spot we hadn't used before. Deeper in the park, past the main loop, down a gravel access road that cell service doesn't reach. He said it was quieter, prettier, fewer families with generators running all night. I didn't think twice about it. We set up Friday afternoon, my parents, Todd and his wife Melissa, Dana and her fiancé Chris, and me and Poppy. 2 trucks, 1 SUV, 3 tents, the whole production. Saturday morning, my mom suggested Poppy, and I walked the Blueberry Trail while everyone else broke down and reorganized camp for the second night. It's maybe a 1.5-mile loop, well-marked, kid-friendly. Poppy had done it before. I didn't think anything of it. We were gone maybe 90 minutes. Poppy filled half a Ziploc bag with berries. We saw a garter snake that she named Steven. Completely normal morning. We came back up the last hill toward the campsite around 11:30. The campsite was empty. Not everyone's off doing something empty. Empty. Tents gone, trucks gone, cooler gone. The fire pit was cold and raked clean like it had never been used. For a second, I genuinely thought I'd walked back to the wrong site, because who breaks down an entire campsite in 90 minutes and just leaves? I checked my phone. No service. Obviously we were still on the access road. I called out. Nothing but birds. Poppy asked where Grandma went, and I made my voice do the calm mom thing, even though my heart was doing something I don't have a word for. I want to be really clear about what the next 4 hours were like, because when I tell people the short version, they hear camping mishap and picture something mildly annoying. It was not that. I had a 6-year-old, half a bottle of water, no phone signal, and a 2-mile walk to a gravel road I wasn't even sure led anywhere. With the sun getting higher and Poppy's shoes not built for that kind of distance, I carried her the last 20 minutes. We found a park ranger truck around 2:30 near the main gate, and I have never been so relieved to see a stranger in a government vehicle in my life. The ranger, a woman named Carol, got us water and let us sit in the shade of her truck while she radioed the park office. It took another hour to reach my mother's cell phone, because, and I didn't know this yet, my family was already back home, an hour and 15 minutes away. When my mom finally answered, her first words were not, "Oh my God, are you okay?" Her first words were, "Rachel. We've been trying to call you for hours." I remember staring at Ranger Carol's dashboard while my mother explained, very calmly, that they'd assumed Poppy and I had gone ahead and driven ourselves home, because, get this, Dana had supposedly told everyone I mentioned wanting to leave early to beat traffic. I never said that. I never would have said that because I drove up in Todd's truck. I didn't have a car at the campsite. There was no vehicle for me to have left in even if I'd wanted to. I said that. I said it clearly more than once. My mother's response was that things got confusing, and everyone thought someone else had eyes on you, and that they'd feel just terrible about it once we were all together to talk it through. But right now, could I please stop yelling, because she was driving? I wasn't yelling. I want that on the record. I was sitting in a park ranger's truck, sunburned, dehydrated, with a child who'd walked 2 miles on blistered feet, being told by my own mother that I was being dramatic on the phone. Ranger Carroll drove us the rest of the way to the main lot, where my car, the one I'd driven up in originally, because Todd had offered to caravan the gear separately in his truck, was, thank God, still parked exactly where I'd left it Friday. I buckled Poppy in, gave her the rest of my granola bar, and drove us home in silence because I genuinely did not trust what would come out of my mouth. That night, once Poppy was asleep, I called my dad. I asked him directly, how does an entire family pack up 3 tents and 2 trucks and leave in under 2 hours? Without one single person walking 100 yards down a marked trail to check if the 2 people who are missing are, in fact, missing. His answer was that it happened fast because storm clouds rolled in and they wanted to beat the rain, and that Dana had said I texted her that I was heading out early. I asked to see the text. He said Dana would have to show me that, not him. Dana never showed me the text. When I asked her directly, 2 days later, she said her phone had glitched, and the message thread looked weird now, and could we please just move past it because everyone felt awful enough already. Here's where I need you to sit with me in the part of this story that isn't dramatic, it's just deeply lonely. Because what followed wasn't an apology. It was 3 weeks of my entire family treating me like the unreasonable one. Todd told me I was still riding the adrenaline and needed to calm down. Melissa, his wife, actually said to my face that nobody almost died, Rachel. You found a ranger in like an hour. As if the 4 hours before that hadn't happened. As if Poppy's blistered feet weren't a thing she could have looked at herself. My mother brought it up at Sunday dinner like it was a funny camping story. Remember when Rachel got lost on the blueberry trail, and when I corrected her said, "Here we go again, in front of Poppy." I started to genuinely wonder if I was crazy. That's the part nobody tells you about gaslighting from your own family. It's not that you doubt the facts, you doubt your right to be upset about the facts. I had the timeline. I had Ranger Carroll's incident report, which I requested a copy of the following week, and which listed the time I flagged her down and the condition Poppy and I were in when she found us. I had proof. And still, every family gathering for 3 weeks, I was the one who made it a thing. I probably would have let it go. Filed it away as one more example of how my family treats me versus how they treat Todd and Dana, and moved on with a slightly heavier chip on my shoulder. Except for one thing that didn't sit right with me, and it wasn't even about the camping trip. It was a receipt. Poppy left her rain jacket in Todd's truck that weekend, so about 10 days after the trip, I drove to his place to grab it. While I was digging around the back seat, a folder of paperwork slid off the console onto the floor. I wasn't snooping, I promise you. I was just picking it up so it didn't get stepped on. But the top page was a fire department incident report dated that same Saturday for our parents' house. A kitchen fire, filed at 1:47 p.m., while Poppy and I were still lost in the woods. I sat in Todd's driveway and read that report probably 6 times. A kitchen fire that damaged the cabinetry, part of the flooring. And this is the detail that made my stomach drop. A home office adjacent to the kitchen where my dad keeps the filing cabinets for Whitfield Builders. Total estimated damage, just under $60,000. Nobody had told me our parents' house caught fire, not my mother, not my father, who I'd spoken to on the phone that same night, not Dana. Nobody. I found out from a piece of paper that fell out of my brother's truck. That's when I stopped being hurt and started being suspicious, and those are very different emotions to operate from. I called my friend Priya, who used to work claims adjustment for a regional insurer before she went back to school, and asked her, hypothetically, what would make an insurance company take a longer look at a fire claim? She rattled off a list. The timing relative to a business's financial trouble, whether important documents were in the damaged area, whether the family had a clean alibi for being elsewhere when it happened. An alibi, everyone in a beautiful, unbroken 90-minute drive-away alibi, camping together. Except for the two people who weren't accounted for the entire time, who were instead very publicly, very verifiably lost in the woods with a park ranger and an official incident report with a timestamp. I want to tell you, I put it together immediately, but honestly it took me another week of quietly pulling threads before I understood the shape of it. I started with the business, because Todd works sales there and Dana does the books. And something about how tight-lipped they both got any time Whitfield Builders came up at dinner had been nagging at me for months, not just since the trip. I called an old college friend, Marcus, who's a forensic accountant, and asked him, again hypothetically, what it would look like if a small construction company was in real financial trouble and needed cash fast without anyone finding out how bad things had gotten. He said the two easiest levers are cooking the books or an insurance claim on business property, and that a lot of people who get caught doing the second one only get caught because they get greedy or sloppy on the first one. I thought about Dana's glitching phone. I thought about how she does the company's books and also happens to be the one person who claimed, with zero proof, that I'd said something I never said. I thought about my dad's home office, conveniently located next to a kitchen fire. On the one day, the entire family had an alibi 90 minutes away. Except for a family emergency, the insurance investigator would later note as unusually convenient. The two witnesses who could contradict the family's story about what time everyone actually left the house that morning were stranded in a state park, with no way to call anyone or check the time on. Anything but their own memory. Here's what I eventually confirmed over the following month, piece by piece, mostly by finally getting Ranger Carroll's full incident log, my own cell phone's location history from that morning. And this part still makes me feel sick. A group text thread that Melissa, of all people, accidentally forwarded to me instead of to Todd, because our names are next to each other in her contacts. Whitfield Builders was roughly $400,000 in debt, most of it hidden from my dad by Dana, who'd been quietly restructuring the books to cover shortfalls tied to two projects that went catastrophically over budget the year before. When my dad finally started asking real questions about the company's cash position, because a bank was getting nervous about a loan renewal, Dana and Todd needed money, fast and quietly, before my dad looked too closely at the actual ledgers. The plan, laid out in that forwarded thread, with a level of casual cruelty that still makes my hands shake typing this, was simple. Stage a kitchen fire at my parents' house, small enough to look like an accident, big enough to hit the insurance payout threshold they needed. Timed for a weekend, when the entire family had a rock-solid group alibi. The home office fire, damage, would also conveniently destroy the physical financial records my dad kept as backups, the ones Dana hadn't gotten around to digitally scrubbing yet. The one wrinkle in their plan was me. Specifically, that I'm the one person in this family who asks too many questions and keeps receipts, literally and figuratively. Someone, the thread doesn't specify, who suggested it first. But Dana was the one who volunteered to handle the timing, decided the safest thing was to get me and Poppy far enough down that blueberry trail, then leave. So that I wouldn't be standing around the campsite asking why everyone was suddenly packing up 2 hours early on a clear, dry Saturday morning. My mother's line in the thread, and I am never going to unsee this, was, "She'll be fine, she does trails alone with Poppy all the time. We'll swing back for her once things are settled." They never swung back. Because once the fire department was called and the report was filed, coming back for me stopped being urgent. I found my own way out. I sat with that thread for 2 days before I did anything, because I needed to be sure I wasn't about to blow up my entire family over a misunderstanding. I wasn't. I read it probably 50 times. There is no version of "she'll be fine, we'll swing back for her" that reads as anything other than what it was. I called the insurance company's fraud tip line first, not the police. Because I wanted someone with actual investigative authority, looking at the paper trail before anyone in my family had a chance to clean anything up further. I forwarded the group thread, Ranger Carroll's incident report with its timestamp, my own phone's location data showing exactly where Poppy and I were between 11 and 3 that day, and Marcus's professional read on the pattern of Dana's bookkeeping irregularities, which he'd offered to formalize into an actual report once I told him what I'd found. The investigation moved faster than I expected, mostly because insurance fraud investigators apparently love nothing more than a self-incriminating group text. Within 6 weeks, the fire marshal's office reclassified the fire as intentionally set, based on accelerant traces in the kitchen that hadn't been flagged the first time because nobody had reason to look for them. Dana's financial restructuring at Whitfield Builders got pulled into a separate embezzlement investigation once the state's attorney's office started asking why a bookkeeper needed a friend's house. Fire to cover a company shortfall. My father was never charged. The investigators believed, and I believe too, that he genuinely didn't know about the fire being staged, only that the company was in worse shape than he'd been told. He's since separated from my mother, sold his share of the business, and has barely spoken to Todd or Dana since it all came out, though he calls me and Poppy every Sunday now, which he never used to do. My mother, Todd, and Dana were all charged. Dana faced the most serious counts: insurance fraud, embezzlement, and falsifying business records, and took a plea deal that includes restitution and a 4-year sentence. Todd pled to conspiracy and fraud charges and got probation and a much smaller restitution order, since he was more involved in the planning than the execution. My mother's charge was the one that actually broke something in me permanently, because it was the smallest one on paper and the biggest one to me personally: conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. Specifically tied to that message about swinging back for me. She got probation too. Melissa was never charged with anything. She wasn't part of the plan, just accidentally CC'd on the fallout, and she's since left Todd. Poppy is fine, by the way. Kids are more resilient than we give them credit for. She still talks about Stephen the Garter Snake more than she talks about being lost. But I notice things now. She asks me twice before we leave a room together at family gatherings whether I'm coming too, and I don't correct her for asking, because some new instincts are worth letting a 6-year-old keep. Update: 3 months later, I saw my mother for the first time since the sentencing hearing last week. Poppy had a dance recital, and my mom showed up uninvited, sat in the back, and left before it ended. She texted me afterwards saying Poppy looked beautiful and that she hopes, someday, I'll understand that she never meant for us to actually get hurt out there. She just didn't think it through. I wrote back one line. I told her I believe she didn't think it through. That's exactly the problem. I never heard back. Whitfield Builders doesn't exist anymore under that name. My dad sold what was left of it to a competitor last month, mostly to cover the restitution and legal fees. He's working as a project manager for the company that bought him out, which he says is honestly a relief, less to carry. Dana starts her sentence next spring. Todd's probation runs for 2 more years. I still camp with Poppy. Just the 2 of us now, and sometimes Priya and her kids come along. We go back to that same state park, actually, though never that far campsite past the gravel road. We stick to the main loop, where the ranger station has a phone, and where, if either of us wanders off, there's always someone close enough to notice.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want more fascinating Reddit tales, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to Archives of Reddit. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.